I upload daily NBA content on this channel, so if that is something that interests you, then subscribe. Also drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference. Also real quick, if you have not yet, there is a new episode of my Sixers My NBA series going over the MVP race for Ben Simmons out now. If you have not watched that series just in general, then I would highly recommend it, even if you do not like 2K. I analyze it to where it's like just basketball, and then 2K is just kind of the medium in order to make the things that I imagine happen, if that made any kind of sense. But yeah, go check that video out if you have not yet, and go check out the series if you have not yet. But with that out of the way, today I am talking about the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs are actually a team that I have talked about quite a bit on this channel. They're also a team that I've kind of been right about at basically every turn. I actually called Kawhi Leonard eventually wanting out of San Antonio. Now, I did have a different reasoning for why he would want out of San Antonio from what he actually gave, but shut up, I called it, okay? And because of Kawhi wanting out and the Spurs getting back a garbage trade, the Spurs have fallen from grace. The Kawhi trade resulted in a 7th seed and first round exit in 2019 and missing the playoffs for the first time in literally my entire life in 2020. And with this roster not exactly drowning in young talent, and really not exactly drowning in talent period, I don't expect this team to be very good in 2021, and I'm starting to heavily question this franchise as well as the people behind the franchise. Which is definitely not something I ever expected, because this team has been a beacon of perfection in the NBA for literally my entire life. But let's talk about why I don't think this team will be good. Let's go over the depth chart for this team. Our 2 starting guards are Derrick White and Dejounte Murray, the 3 is Demar Derozan, the 4 is Trey Lyles for some reason, and the 5 is LaMarcus Aldridge. The backup point is, of course, Patty Mills. Their backup forwards and guards are some assortment of Kelden Johnson, Samonic, Lonnie Walker, and Devon Vasel. I don't know exactly what that rotation will look like. Then there's Rudy Gay and Jakob Poeltl as the backup bigs. Their 2 starting guards are guys who have shown some real potential, but unfortunately have only really shown flashes of it thus far in their careers for a good handful of reasons. In the case of Derrick White, it really feels like Greg Popovich has the guy on a leash. He only really hands him the keys towards the end of the season and in the playoffs, and I don't know why. In the first round versus the Nuggets in 2019, Derrick White averaged 15, 3, and 3, including a 36-point game where he shot 15 for 21. And in the 8 regular season games of the bubble, Pop seemed to hand him the keys once more, where he averaged 19, 4, and 5 on great efficiency, shooting nearly 50% from the field and nearly 40% from 3 on 8 attempts per game. The dude deserves a bigger role in the offense, because he's very clearly a good creator for himself and others, and while he's not young by NBA standards at the age of 26, he is young enough that he deserves opportunity to prove himself, and it's not like this team is killing it in the young prospect area. For Dejounte Murray, he's just been incredibly inconsistent. He's shown good signs, had a few good scoring games and a few good scoring streaks, but then also a good amount of bad ones. He's just averaging out to be an okay scorer, but really, he's either good or bad depending on the day or the week. He also does not have a 3-point shot, which certainly isn't doing him any favors. He's good defensively, like very good, a good finisher and ball handler, and last year he shot very well from mid-range. But until he starts being more consistent and develops an at least semi-reliable 3-point shot, I don't expect Murray to be anything more than just a very valuable role player. DeMar DeRozan is one of the sadder stories in the NBA, and I unfortunately do not think very highly of him as a player. Really just due to the importance of shooting in the NBA. Even though outside of 3-point shooting, DeMar DeRozan is practically a perfect offensive player, that lack of a jumper from outside really does make that big of an impact. He's also not a defender, though I've seen some people over-exaggerating his defense. He's not a good defensive player, but I see people act like he's a horrible one when he's not. He's just like a little bit below average. I do not know why Trey Lyles is starting for this team at power forward. I really feel like Rudy Gay would be the better option, at least offensively that is. And I mean, Trey is just okay, rhyming accidentally, and he also just seems like the safe pick and that's kind of an issue I have with this team and Greg Popovich in general. Trae starting speaks to the bigger issue that I have with Greg Popovich, that he's run this team making just the safe decision at every turn, which holds back the team in the win column and holds back the young talent. But we'll talk about that more later. LaMarcus Aldridge wasn't doing the safest option last year, which I guess I can credit Greg Popovich for encouraging that a good bit. LaMarcus was shooting threes last year, and he shot them pretty well. Not in a whole lot of attempts, but he did shoot 39%, and with him playing the position that he's built for in 2020, which is obviously center, as well as him improving defensively as a result of that change, his longevity has definitely improved. It's a good sign for his career going forward into this offseason, where he's looking to get his last contract, or at the very least his last big contract, and being a stretch 5 is definitely going to net him a little bit more money with his age. He's a good player, no longer quite all-star caliber, but very solid all around and can contribute to a good amount of wins. The bench unit for this team could go in a million different directions. There are a couple of young guys as well as some veterans, and based on how Pop tends to coach, I have a feeling he's going to be leaning more on the vets than the younger players. But because I don't know what the exact structure of this bench unit is actually going to look like, I'm just going to kind of talk about everyone who's not going to be a starter. I'll start with the guys I can go by the quickest. Patty Mills is a good veteran point guard, great shooter, and good leader. Rudy Gay is a really solid role player. Rudy is someone who never really found his footing in the league until he went to the Spurs, where his strengths were exemplified and his weaknesses were lessened. Pop did a great job of making Rudy a consistent and reliable role player. Jakob Poeltl should be named Jacob, because every Jacob in the league sucks. Every Jacob that has ever been in the league sucks. Jacob Evans is the only current Jacob, and he isn't good. Then over the last 2 seasons, there's only been 2 other Jacobs who've played in the league, and they played a combined 8 goddamn games in their careers. And they were both young players. Jacob was the most popular boy name in the early 2000s, so why is there not a single good Jacob in the league? I don't understand. Oh, my name is Jacob, by the way, in case you didn't know that already. And apparently it was a curse that kept me from ever being an NBA player. I guess I'll just blame it on my name and not literally everything else. But Jakob is a fine center. He's pretty good all around. Good defensively, good rebounding. Whatever, his name should be Jacob, but I guess that's illegal. Lonnie Walker is one of those young guys that Spurs fans in denial about this team heading in the right direction swear by. And look, I'm not denying the guy has talent, but I think it says a lot about the direction of this team that so many are putting so much into a dude who averaged 6 points last year. Not saying that Lonnie will not be good, but it kind of is sad that you're this desperate for him to be the future of the franchise. I'm just going to say this directly to you, Spurs fans. You believe in Lonnie Walker more than your own team does, otherwise they'd be playing him more than 16 minutes per game. I do think Lonnie can be a good NBA player, but the fans of the Spurs keep banking so much on these young players that are getting drafted late and expecting them to be some future franchise caliber guy because the Spurs have always done well in the draft, but as we've seen, that's not really working out and you're in denial. In case that didn't say anything, I've had some back and forth with Spurs fans in the past, swearing by DeJounte Murray being a future superstar, and I'm just tired of it. Kelden Johnson is a 3-and-D wing who showed some promise in the 17 games that he played last year, but he did play 17 games, so I wouldn't be freaking out. He did average 20-6 in the G League, though he did shoot 25% from 3 over 30 games, which does not look amazing for the 3 part of the 3-and-D title. But he is 20, and he has upside, so he's wait and see. Samonic is a 6'10 forward with a decent jumper and all-around game. He's young and played only 3 games last year. He is yet another wait-and-see guy, though unfortunately I strongly doubt that he will ever take the title of the best Luka in the NBA. Devon Vasel was the Spurs lottery pick, and he has good size and a really good jump shot, which is a great place to start. He's also solid defensively and not a bad finisher, and he has shown some creating ability. Yet another wait-and-see guy. But I imagine with him being the Spurs' first lottery pick since Tim Duncan, he's gonna have a good amount of minutes. And Tre Jones is a point guard just like his brother Tyus, and I will say, just for the point, Rob Jones has not said shit about his 2 sons being in the league. just saying LeVar. But Trey projects to have a potential similar to Tyus, a solid backup that doesn't necessarily excel at anything, but he's just really solid overall, good jump shot and good playmaking. But that was a San Antonio Spurs roster, and I do have to say right out of the gate, wow, that was really underwhelming. This roster doesn't really have any clear structure to it, and it's just a whole lot of blah. There's young guys on this team, but none of them are huge standouts by any means. I mean, with there being 6 guys on this team, age 22 or younger, there are pretty good odds that at least one of these players ends up being a really good player, but nobody that's young on this team is someone that I would put a bunch of money into their stock. I just would not have that confidence on anyone here. Both Demar Derozan and LaMarcus Aldridge are relics of the past. Demar much more so than LA, because at least LaMarcus has been stepping out to the three-point line, but the biggest and most consequential relic of the past associated with this team is Greg Popovich. Yes, I'm going to criticize the greatest coach of all time. Now, I did just call him the GOAT coach, so clearly I view Greg in a high esteem. However, the guy is not above criticism, and I'm very much tired of people acting like he is. No one is above criticism. I'm sure as hell not. I'm just a jackass sitting in a gray chair. But Greg is a perfect coach for a contending team, or a good team, or a team heading towards being good. But he's not anywhere close to the perfect coach for a rebuilding team, and especially a team on the downswing. Greg keeps his young guys on a tight leash, makes sure to make the safest play available, doesn't give the guys a real chance, and worst of all, the culture and the no-nonsense element that he tends to bring with him doesn't seem to exist anymore. At the very least, it's not effective with this team. I would go as far as to say that the Spurs as a franchise are at least somewhat held back by Greg Popovich in the position that they are currently in. For the last 2 decades, they have been contending, so him not being great for a rebuild didn't fucking matter because they never had to rebuild. But now that they're in this position, Greg Popovich is not built for that job. That doesn't mean Greg is bad. Obviously, I just said he's the greatest coach of all time, but he is bad for a rebuilding team, or at the very least not great for it, because he's not allowing the young guys to develop, and he's burning these older guys into the ground until they still end up being just mediocre. The Spurs have fallen from grace, and it's sad because they have been a beacon of excellence for 2 decades plus. They built a very successful and winning model, but unfortunately the Kawhi drama tore down that model and they have not been able to recover, and with some semblance of the previous structure of that model not being built for what they need to do now, it seems like the franchise is at odds with itself. And as a result of all of these issues, the Spurs have fallen into irrelevance. And unfortunately, I think they're going to have to make some drastic changes soon, or they're going to continue to remain completely irrelevant. But again, go check out that My NBA video if you have not yet. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video. That is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.